Hey, this is the Big Hardcore Gamer, and in this video I'll be reviewing Stellar Blade. Now, if you've been following my channel and you've seen all the content I've put up as well as all the community posts, you'll know that I absolutely love this game. So in this video I'll be going through what the game is, the gameplay, all the things that I loved about the game and the things that I think need to be improved before the sequel, because there better be a sequel. Like all of my reviews, this will be spoiler free. I will use some boss battle footage, but it won't be anything from any of the main bosses, any of the story based bosses that will give away spoilers. Also, I do try to keep these reviews to a maximum of 30 minutes, but I have so much to talk about that I think I probably will go over, so I'll put some timestamps in the video, just in case you want to take breaks and come back to it. Please watch until the end of the video, and also leave it a like and share it around if you enjoy it. Right, let's get into it. In Stellar Blade, Earth has been conquered by a race of creatures called the Naytiba. You play as Eve, who's a member of Airborne Squad 7, sent down from a space colony on a mission to kill the Alpha Naytibas and finally kill the Elder Naytiba and reclaim Earth for humankind. She is accompanied by Adam, a scavenger from the last human city named Zion, and Lily, who is a skilled technician who will upgrade Eve's equipment along the way. There is more to the story than this, but like I said at the beginning, no spoilers. Now, I mentioned in my first impressions for the demo that this is not a Souls game. After completing the game, I can confirm that this really is not a Souls game, but it does have some Souls elements to it. You don't collect souls or this game's equivalent to upgrade stats for your character. You don't drop these souls when you die and have to go back to the location to collect them. There isn't a stamina bar or different archetypes either, and there's even an easy mode. Souls elements that I did notice were campsites to save your progress, and enemies respawning when you save at a campsite, which allows you to to farm from them if you want to for credits and XP and materials. But this isn't really a game where you need to do any farming. You're also able to unlock shortcuts and travel to previously visited districts, but Souls games aren't the only games to allow you to do this. Stellar Blade is more of a stylish hack and slash game with parry and dodge based combat that takes inspiration from different successful games. When I did the launch day live stream, the first comparison one of my viewers made was Sekiro because of the parry-based combat. Others have mentioned Nier Automata, which even the directors said was one of their inspirations. Others in my comments have also mentioned Bayonetta, which I think is because of the game's sex appeal. There are a couple sections that reminded me a lot of Dead Space, which I was surprised to see, and there's definitely some Devil May Cry influence in there as well. Now, although it definitely takes inspiration from other games, there are still gameplay mechanics that give Stellar Blade its own identity. So let's talk about those. From the moment you enter the first district after the prologue, you're given your first two beta skills. There's a BE meter that is charged up every time you do a perfect parry, and when it's charged up enough, the button prompts light up in blue to indicate that you can use these skills. There are 4 beta skills in total, and the other 2 can be unlocked in whichever order you want. I like how each beta skill has its own benefit in combat. Now, out of the 4, Triplet is my favourite. This is basically a triple stab with the sword, which throws out arcs of energy, and the third stab stuns the enemy. Slash swings the sword forward, which can damage multiple enemies. When it's charged up, it increases the damage and can also stun the enemies. This is good for when you're being overwhelmed by enemies, especially smaller Naytiba, and you want to clear them out quickly. Shockwave launches 2 waves of energy forward. and is good, when there's a little distance between you and your target. And with Shield Breaker, she does a backflip strike on the Natiba. This deals eye damage to their shield. I use this one mostly towards the end of the game with some of the tougher bosses, which I really need to get rid of their shield quickly so I can start doing some damage. Each of these can be upgraded at the campsites using skill points, which are built up by collecting XP from killing enemies. The upgrades make them more powerful and add more features. For example, Shockwave adds an additional energy wave for a final blow, and Triplet adds a fourth strike that also depletes some of the balance meter, which I'll go through a bit later. Later on in the game, you unlock burst skills as well, which are very flashy attacks that leave the Natiba stunned. When these are unlocked, you'll get a BU meter, which is charged up by doing perfect dodges. These are also unlocked in any order using skill points and are also upgradable. My favorite burst skill is the Tempest, which unleashes a storm of blades on screen before striking the enemies that are caught up in it all at once. This move has saved my ass so many times. To start off with, you're invulnerable while this move is activated, apart from a couple cases towards the end of the game. One of the upgrades is Lifesteal, which will steal energy from the Natiba and recover some of your HP. Tempest definitely reminded me of a move that Virgil does in Devil May Cry. There is a third skill set which is unlocked later on in the game, but I'll let you discover it for yourselves because it's a nice surprise. I don't want to ruin it. As well as being able to upgrade the beta and burst attacks, there's also attack and survival skills to unlock. These include new combos and counters, which can be practiced in the training room. You can also unlock ambush attacks, which is an instant kill from behind on an enemy that hasn't spotted you yet. This is especially useful when dealing with some of the tougher enemies, especially when they're in groups, because it allows you to roll up on the toughest enemy and one hit kill them before the other enemies notice you. The assault skill allows you to do a death from above attack, which, but this is unlocked from the beginning of the game. What I love about the combat is that your attacks need to be more deliberate. Multiple enemies will attack you at the same time, and you need to know when the best time is to parry, dodge, and attack enough before backing away. If you're skilled with combos, you can go absolutely wild with this one. Now, I've said in previous videos that I'm not good at memorizing combos, and that's why I don't play a lot of fighting games like Tekken and Street Fighter. With that being said, I was still able to pull off some decent combos, and when combined with beta, burst, parrying and perfect dodging, I was able to achieve some good looking gameplay. Well, at least I thought it looked good anyway. Now, the drone that follows you around is used by Adam and Lily to communicate with Eve, but later on it doubles up as a gun. I was happy with the amount of firing modes available on this game, because there are 5 modes available in total. During combat, I mostly use my sword and the skills unlocked, but you will find some areas and some occasions where you need to use your gun to get you out of some situations. I thought this was actually pretty smart, as it means that every gameplay mechanic needs to be used at some point during the game, and they gave the gamer a lot of options in combat. I know that in a couple of tough fights later on in the game, I had to pull out my gun just to get through some difficult enemies, because by that point I was tired of dying. I just didn't want to take the risk. Now, the drone is also used to scan areas, which is useful for detecting hidden enemies and also detecting any items and boxes to be opened. The drone can be upgraded by finding upgrade modules in these little robots throughout the game and upgrading it at the repair console found in some campsites. The sword is also upgraded the same way with different by finding upgrade modules in different robots, as well as the rechargeable tumbler, which is used as your main healing item. Now, you can find different healing items as backup for when the tumbler runs out, and they each heal Eve differently. For example, the lingering potion will gradually restore HP. The tumbler replenishes every time you rest at a campsite, but the other items don't unless you have additional stock of them in your storage. These healing items, as well as ammo for the gun, can be found in boxes around the game. They're dropped by some enemies, and they can also be purchased at the vending machines found at campsites. You can find upgrades for Eve's body core and beta core by looking for glowing dead bodies throughout the game, and your DualSense controller will also vibrate when you get close to one of these bodies. There are also different types of grenades that can be found and bought. I mentioned in the first impressions video for the demo that I didn't like how these are used, and I still have the same feelings about them. They are thrown at Eve's feet for any Natiba that's close by. I would have preferred if you're able to lock onto an enemy and lob the grenades at them, or maybe a combination of both. But I did get used to it, and they were useful in some situations, like throwing down a proximity mine for Natiba to walk into. Or the one I used the most was the sonic grenades, which were used to knock 2 points off an enemy's balance meter. Now, the balance meter is basically a stagger meter that most enemies have. Every time you do a perfect parry, it knocks off a dot from the balance meter. The upgraded triplet beta attack knocks off a dot on the final strike, and like I mentioned before, the sonic grenade knocks off 2 dots. When the meter is empty, you're prompted to do a retribution attack by pressing the triangle button. This does a good amount of damage on them and is definitely useful in boss fights. And the animation for each one of these is brutal and usually pretty gory. It encourages the player to work on their parry skills rather than just relying on the perfect dodge. And trust me when I say this, you're going to need to learn how to perfect parry by the time you get to the last 3 bosses in the game, especially the second from last boss, because that one is going to put you to the test to see what you've learnt up until that point in the game. From all the previews and gameplay, you may be under the impression that this is strictly a linear game. Now, that's only half true. There's a lot of linear gameplay in this, which I expected and I don't have a problem with. But when you get to Zion, the game opens up and Zion becomes your central base until you get to the point of no return. In Zion, you can talk to NPCs and get side missions from them. There's a notice board that you can get more side missions from, and there are 2 big areas that you can access from Zion: the Wasteland and the Great Desert. You'll encounter different breeds of Natibas in these areas, and I spent a lot of time exploring both of them, which is why my first playtime was so long. The missions you accept in Zion will usually send you to and from the big open areas, and sometimes send you back to districts that you've already been to. Some of the side missions will also end in a surprise boss fight that you would have missed. So I'm definitely recommending that you do each of the side missions. And there's a lot. I don't know the exact number, but it must be close to 40 or 50 side missions from the NPCs and notice boards combined. Also, I saw online around the time of release that the point of no return was an issue for some reviewers. I don't actually know what the issue was with this, because it's not the first game to do this. One thing I will say though is when you reach this point, you're not at the end of the game, but you're in the end game where you'll travel to different areas and start fighting towards the final objective. If you are trying to get the platinum, it's best to get everything you want done and then continue the game when ready. You can also customize Eve's build. You can equip different exospines to improve things like her combo, attack power, and damage. and shield generation, as well as other things. You can also equip gear on top of these to give you even more benefits in combat with things like melee protection and enhanced critical damage. I like that you can switch these on the fly without needing to go back to a campsite. You just press the settings menu button on the controller and select the equipment tab, and you're able to change it from there. There are also more than 30 outfits to be found in Stellar Blades, with additional outfits to be found in New Game Plus. Each outfit can be found just by playing the game, no microtransactions. I was given the Stargazer outfit in the Digital Deluxe Edition, but apart from that, I found everything else in the game. There are boxes with suit schematics to be found throughout the game. Once found, you can craft them at a repair console if you have the necessary resources. You'll be rewarded with some outfits by completing some missions or sets of missions. I've said many times before that I hate doing collectathons. Now, this game does force you to do a collectathon for some cans, but the outfit you get as a reward for collecting all of them makes it worth it. As well as changing our outfits and earrings, the appearance of Adam and Lily and the drone can also be customized. You can also customize Eve's hairstyle. You can change your hairstyle and also the hair color. Now, I'm not even ashamed to admit that I enjoy doing this. There are no gameplay benefits to switching outfits, so it's purely cosmetic. However, you are able to remove her clothes by equipping the skin suit. And this doesn't just remove her clothes, but also removes her shield, making the combat more challenging. I did this for the boss challenge mode in the demo, and I can confirm that it is a lot tougher to get through enemies with the skin suits. So now let's talk about the overall presentation and features. To start with, Stellar Blade is a very good looking game. There are 3 graphics modes available: a performance mode which runs at 1440p 60 frames per second, a graphics mode that runs at 4K 30 frames per second, and the balance mode that runs at an upscaled 4K at 50 to 60 frames per second. I played on balance mode and it looked great. There are parts of the game that absolutely look stunning, and I didn't notice any frame drops at all. There were a couple sections where I did notice a drop in the visual quality though. The part that comes to mind is when fishing in the Great Desert, where there were a couple of occasions where the image was a little fuzzy, and also on 1 or 2 other occasions, but that was really it. The effects for the combat were flashy, and no matter how crazy any of the fights got, I didn't experience any frame drops or visual bugs. As good as the jiggle physics are for Eve, and let's face it, everybody knows just how good they are, what's not getting enough attention and enough praise are the air physics. You can have her air long or short, but to really appreciate how good the air physics are, you need to have it long. Her air will literally wrap around her body when long and behave like real hair. There were a few occasions when I would just have her jumping and doing flips just to see if I could see any clipping of the air through her body, and this never happened. The last time I saw hair this good was with the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy. Now, I played that on PC, and I'm pretty sure that the hair clipped through Lara's body, so to see it react like this on a console is really impressive. The enemy designs are great. This isn't a game where they will just wait around for you to finish with one enemy before the next attacks. They'll actually surround you and try to overwhelm you, and cutting through them is bloody, gory and satisfying. They also make it easy for you to determine what type of attack is coming your way. A normal attack can be blocked or parried. When you see a yellow circle, that's an unblockable attack. Blue circles need you to either get out of the way or dodge while moving forward to achieve a blink attack, while purple requires you to dodge while moving backwards, which is kind of a backflip to knock them away. And there's a lot of enemy variety as well, and stronger variants of some of the enemies. But what's really impressive are the boss designs, as well as their movements. They may be big, but they're usually pretty fast and will definitely give you a hard time until you figure out, their attack patterns. And once you do, you can achieve some really epic gameplay. Now, let's talk about the DualSense features. You can really tell that PlayStation helped shift up, get the most out of the DualSense features, because this is the best I've seen since Returnal. And yeah, I know I said this with Helldivers 2 in that review, but this is actually better. I first noticed it when arriving at Eidos 7 near the beginning of the game, where it starts raining heavy and you feel, every raindrop in the aptics controller. When achieving a perfect parry during combat, you feel it, and also you hear a satisfying ping from the nativas as they clash against Eve's sword. When using the gun, you feel every gunshot through the triggers. And also with the boss fights, there's this one boss called Gigas, which is basically like a Natiba version of a gorilla. And when he first appears, he starts pounding, beating on his chest, and you feel every beat through the controller. It's really good. That was actually one of the most impressive uses of the DualSense that I saw in the game. It's done really well. And then there's the music. The best soundtrack I've heard this year in the game. And if it doesn't win an award for this, I may end up saying that the game got snubbed. There's chilled out music playing, for each area you visit. And then different music when, in some action sequences and boss encounters. I even noticed that the music volume will lower when you dive underwater and then return to normal when you come back up. Another thing that I loved was that the game released with New Game Plus, which comes with a couple extra trophies and some upgrades and outfits to find. At the time of this review, I'm working through my second playthrough on stream on hard difficulty, which was unlocked when I beat the game. There are also 3 endings to be achieved if you want the platinum, so it gives you an incentive to, for multiple playthroughs. Although I absolutely love this game, there were still some dislikes. To start off with, there wasn't a photo mode at launch, and this is a game that really did need a photo mode. I was still able to take some cool screenshots, but I would have preferred a photo mode to get, better position shots with effects. Next is the platforming. While I did like some of the minor attentions to details that they added to the game, like swinging to the correct side of a ladder when you grab it from the wrong side, things like that, and having climbable rocks that are not on the main path, that you can just try them out and see if you can climb on them. There were still a lot of unnecessary deaths due to issues with the platforming. I lost count of the amount of times I tried to grab a rope or bar and missed it and fell to my death. Also, some of the puzzle boxes are straight up bullshit. Right? I say some, but to be honest, there's only really one type in particular. The one with the randomized symbols and 15 or 20 seconds to input them all. I spent a long time trying to open these damn boxes, and I think I only managed to open one of them. Even with the one I opened, it was pure luck because the last 4 symbols just happened to all be the same, so I could enter them in quickly. I also thought that the support characters needed to be fleshed out more. I've seen online that some reviewers were calling Eve boring, which I disagree with. Eve is more naive when she arrives at Zion. She wants to help out everybody, but she's kind of awkward when talking to people. Like she doesn't know how to accept a compliment, and she gets really annoyed when anyone tries to flirt with her.
Angel, thank you so much for bringing a little bit of light into this dark alleyway.
I didn't come here for your compliments.
Very scary. What is it? So you're leaving? I had a good time. I wonder if our customer is as satisfied as I am.
Let's leave it at that. Goodbye.
I even saw her turn down some side missions just because they were really weird. Now, this is something that you don't see much of in games, and it really did make me laugh. But I thought she was a cool character. But they should have spent some more time fleshing out Adam's character. I thought he was the weakest character and was kind of dull, and I just really didn't care about him at all. A day or so after I recorded the audio for this video, Shift Up released an update for the game which added a boss challenge mode where you can fight every boss that you've already beaten in the game, and they also added some new outfits and some quality of life changes. So now for the verdict. Stellar Blade is an absolute gem of a game. The combat is fun and gives you a lot of options to achieve some stylish combat, no matter your skill level. It fully uses the DualSense features. It's visually stunning. The soundtrack needs to win an award this year. Good enemy variety and fun boss fights. Challenging and has a decent skill tree. Great graphics options. A decent story, and you can find out more about the game's lore by reading notes that you find around the game. I think a lot of closed-minded people saw the game's sex appeal and Eve's assets and thought this was just going to be an arse and titty simulator. But I'm glad to be able to tell you that this really isn't the case, and it's a really good game. Going by the review scale I introduced earlier this year, Stellar Blade is a masterpiece and a must-own title for any PS5 owner that loves action games. There's still a demo available which is roughly 45 to 60 minutes long and includes the boss challenge modes when you complete it. So if you haven't checked out, if you're somehow still on the fence even after watching this video, I think you should just go and check it out. You can also carry over your saved game to the full release if you decide to buy it, so you're not gonna have to restart the game, you know, if you buy it. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the review and found it useful. If you did, please leave it a like. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and check out some other content. These reviews take a long time to make, so I'd also appreciate it if you shared the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.